And he's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. There was no like, back and forth. It was just like, oh, that makes perfect sense. And sure enough, it plays out like that. He's just like, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another edition of Dream Firm Spotlight. My name is Tyler S. Clark, co-founder of Dream Firms, where we create generational wealth and impact for entrepreneurial accountants by systemizing how you attract, win, and retain the business of your dream clients. And what we're going to talk about today is how I added $1 million to a CPA firm in 33 months. And full disclaimer here, while it says I added it, my clients will always tell you that I give them all the credit. So in truth, the client added the $1 million. It's not like I was in his firm taking the sales calls. He made the strategic decisions. We helped guide it. He stuck to the plan, and he's harvesting a lot of wonderful fruit right now. And I'm going to set the backdrop for the relationship with this client, and more importantly, talk about the things that they're not doing that you probably are, that you should stop doing so that you can get gains like this particular individual. So this is going to go back in time a little bit, because 33 months, pretty close to 3 years ago. And if we can think back about 3-ish years ago, there was what we'll refer to as a black swan event that happened in the world. A little bit of craziness with the COVID-ness. And this client came to us right before that, honestly, a couple months before that. And back then, there weren't many reasons to trust Dream Firms, just to say it out loud. We didn't have 100 5-star reviews. We didn't have tons of video testimonials. We weren't flying, our clients weren't flying out to France and having these masterminds. And all of a sudden, this $1 million firm owner pops up onto my calendar. And so this was already a $1 million firm, which is an important piece of context to this particular story. And the reason this is an important piece of context is I've learned that $1 million firm owners tend to be very complacent. They tend to be the type of people who have gotten to the top of the mountain. They're very happy there, and they don't really have a whole lot of fight and drive in them. It's not true for all of them, for sure. But in my experience, it's actually we've gone further and further away from $1 million accounting firm owners. And we love the smaller ones because they're hungry, they're fighting, they got something to prove, they want to listen, they want to participate, and they really want to grow. And that's who we want to work with. But this $1 million firm owner, they were different. I could just tell. And they went through our Practice Igniter challenge. They hopped on. He could tell that there was something different about the way we did things. And I could notice there was something different about him. And when he started talking and telling me about his story before we were really engaged in any meaningful, agreement together, he shared with me some interesting facts about his life and his firm, which I, of course, have permission to share here. And the one thing that you'll realize about a lot of $1 million firm owners is they tend to get there very slowly over a really long time period, okay? Because they normally are doing referral only. And in this case, this was no different. He had grown basically $33,000 per year over 30 years to get to $1 million-ish in annual revenue. Now, slow and steady can certainly win the race, but depending on where you're starting the race in your life, if you're a little older and you're becoming an entrepreneur, you may not have 30 years to get to your growth goals and you'd like to speed things up. Or you've been down that path like this individual has, and you say, wait a minute, I'd like to move faster, or wait a minute, something has changed in my life that has required me to go about things in a different way. And so this is a shot across the bow for everyone listening to this, that a lot of firm owners take on more responsibility than they have to, and work will fill up exactly the amount of time you allot for it. When he started working with us, it was on the back end of a stroke. And prior to the stroke, he had been working 80-hour weeks. Tough, right? Really tough. Thankfully, he survived it, but he abruptly had to go from 80 hours a week of productivity to 20 hours a week because of migraines and the things that come along with what happens when you suffer a severe health issue like a stroke. And he lost mobility in half of his body. He became paralyzed in half of his body. So for a lot of people, that would be detrimental. Obviously, it is detrimental. It would deter them. It would require them to potentially even sell the business. But the person on the other end of this coaching session that I had with them, this call, he had iron resolve, iron will, and I was taken aback by it. I was like, wow, this guy's committed. He's not your average $1 million firm owner. He's seen what happens to being average in that category, and he's more than motivated to change his life and change the way his firm operates. So that's the backdrop for the beginning of our relationship. So a lot of our clients, they have more time. He didn't have more time, but he had more financial resources for sure. So there's a balance here. And I think most people would appreciate having more time than having more financial resources. Now, in Tom's case, Tom was able to reorder and restructure how his firm operated so that he was capable of doubling the size of it, adding another $1 million in revenue in 1/10 of the time, 3 years compared to 30 years, while working 1/4 of the time per week. So most people hear that and it almost like breaks their brain because they're like, but I'm working 80, you know? And so I want to emphasize this for whether you're doing, you're trying to get your first client, you're trying to get your next 100 clients. It doesn't really matter. It's not the things that you're doing that you need to worry about. It's the things that you should not be doing, right? It's the inverse of that. We're constantly trying to add and add and add. And the one thing that Tom has mastered is the art of subtraction, addition through subtraction, if you will. And I'll get more tactical about that in a second, but there's an analogy I love, which is like a lot of accounting firms are like almost like entrepreneurial hoarders. They're just trying to like keep everything in their house. And there are all these things. And then I'm like, here's this beautiful piece of art. It'd be perfect for your home. And they're like, but what about all these bags of trash? What am I going to do with these bags of trash? And I'm like, well, ideally, we get them out of here first. And then we have space for the beautiful things and the valuable things and the clients that love you. Wouldn't that be nice? So the point that I'm making here is one of the principles that Tom installed, and is one of the things we help our clients to do, is profitability analysis. Now that sounds basic and routine, but the question is, what do you do after you do the analysis? And there's a fantastic book that everyone here should read if you struggle with getting rid of bad clients, bad personal relationships, whether they're family, whether they're lovers, whatever. Necessary pruning. And so our general recommendation for pruning your firm is at least once per year, ideally twice per year. But for Tom prunes his firm once per quarter. So he does double the recommended amount of pruning that we suggest. And he's also, again, a larger firm. So what he does is every quarter, like clockwork, he runs the profitability analysis, which is if you've only got a little bit of time or less time than the average entrepreneur, and you're trying to make smart decisions. One, you need good data. Some of the best data you'll ever get is always analyzing the profitability and the pricing on your clients. There's a great study by ProfitWell, which basically states that, shockingly, companies that analyze their price once per year it's like 2.7 times more profitable than companies that never do it. And then obviously it even is better when they do it more frequently. So Tom is doing it more frequently than everybody else, which allows him to make really smart decisions in extremely limited time windows. Okay. So again, that's a super important aspect, which is you've got to make space to bring in more clients, which is something he is a master at. Every bottom 10%, every quarter, cutting them like clockwork. And fun, just sort of like side point here. Imagine, a marketing company that actually collects accounting data to validate their claims. Wouldn't that be crazy? So I've got P&Ls from Tom, because crazy thing, Tom actually believes in accounting. Wild. All of his books are up to date. Imagine that. And so I was taking a look at his first 3 months of the year. And in his first 3 months of the year, he added another $100,000 compared to the previous year. However, what makes this even more impressive is that's in addition to the fact that he subtracted 10% of his clients at the end of the year. So that doesn't show up necessarily on your P&L, right? It doesn't show like we intentionally got rid of the bottom 10% of our clients. So he went 100 grand above that, given the fact that he intentionally went down 10%, right? Like what? Wild. And so some people hear this and they'll be like, well, maybe Tom's just lucky. And I mean, that would be hard to say given the background of what I just described to you. But what's funny about luck is I prescribe to the definition. It's when preparation meets opportunity. And I told you that Tom and I began our relationship pre-COVID. And I know people wouldn't say COVID is an opportunity. I get that. Absolutely not. But he still prepared for an unknowable future. We didn't know that was going to happen. And Tom was well positioned in a state that had an influx of people that were fleeing more constricted areas. So the opportunity came because he prepared. And he's the opposite of short-sighted. He has an extremely long vision for the future. And so what happened is with just one well-implemented marketing strategy, and we can do a bunch, but even with just one, that more or less carried the vast majority of his growth. He just became the go-to guy in his market for the massive influx of generally wealthy people who can afford to move to Florida, given the raise in real estate prices with a massive influx of people. And they just flock to him because of his reviews online, which gives him a front-end pipeline to be able to give him the ability to get rid of the people on the other side. Pretty awesome, right? So there's another thing that he's not doing that I see much smaller firms spinning their wheels on all the time. And so when you're growing consistently and not just growing the size of your revenues and the size of your team and the size of your clients, you have to keep your eye on the ball, which means you don't want to go through massive software migrations every other quarter, year, right? Like I'm using Carbon. Oh, I'm using TaxDome. Don't use TaxDome. Oh, I'm using this company over here, and but maybe I'm going to go try them over there. You just need a deep level of expertise in the tool that you have adopted, and you've got to just embrace it. The grass is not greener on the other side, so don't delude yourself into being like, I'll make more money when when I switch this whole massive project. He hasn't done that since we've started working with him. He's like, I'm not going to do that. Why would I do that? I'm like, I completely agree. I think it's the biggest waste of time that accountants routinely do. So he's not doing that. He's sticking with it. He's riding through it. He's building SOPs to support it. He's working closely with the company that he works with for his workflow fulfillment software. He's not wasting his time with huge migrations. And I'll add one other thing on here, okay? I have two other big points here. One of the things he's also not doing is he's not swapping vendors. So yes, there's the technology for for managing his work and his workflows for sure. But he's also not changing his relationships that are contributing directly to his growth. Like I had one client who sang our praises. She left me a review that made me cry. It was so beautiful. Her business exploded. She's hopping on the phone with me. And then she's like, I'm going to go do something else. And I'm like, I was genuinely confused. And I'm all for people spreading their wings and finding, potentially other people to help them. Don't get me wrong. But usually that happens when you miss the mark, not when the mark explodes because you did it so well. And so I was just kind of like confused by that. And sure enough, they're kind of middling along while Tom is consistently just going like this every single month and quarter and year. And part of that is because when you have things that work and you have people who are legitimately on your side, you keep them on your side. You don't hope to go and find other people that are ethical, honest, experts, have proven track records. Like you don't gamble on that. You keep it. It would be like trading accountants, even though you're crushing it, you're giving me great tax advice, like you're killing it. And I'm like, I'm gonna go and try out another accounting firm. You'd be like, I don't even understand. That doesn't even make sense. And Tom wastes no time on that because he has no time to waste on those things. So people who have this extra abundance of time, they will waste it on these meaningless things that don't move the needle at all, like constant website developments. You know how many times Tom has wanted to update his website since starting with us? Probably zero. I mean, maybe one minor tweak because I think, like maybe like a partner buyout or something, and he had to just like update a bio page, but like that's it. And I will talk to entrepreneurial accountants who are on their like fifth website provider in 2 years. And I'm like, this doesn't matter. I mean, don't get me wrong, it matters a little bit, but the level of energy you're putting into it compared to what you get back from it is basically zero. You're at a complete net negative, and you're never going to make up the difference for it because it's never going to be what you think it's going to be. It's just not. All right, so I got one last one. And this one is something I had to work through with Tom because again, he's got great vision for the future. He's great strategically, tactically, but he's also running two other businesses, which is crazy. He's got a cybersecurity company, and he's got an escape room company, and he's got a multi-million-dollar accounting firm, and he's working 20 hours a week. So like just absolute boss. But one of the things that we were looking at is we were analyzing numbers, and we were talking about how many clients he signed. He's routinely picking up fractional CFO engagements. Most of his time in his firm is just spent signing new clients and then managing his staff. That's kind of like the dream situation. 20 hours a week, you sign the new clients, you say, hey, you're not really going to talk to me unless it's super necessary. You're going to work primarily with this person. And then you make sure those people are meeting their promises. But when you're crushing it, you got to grow your team eventually, right? There's only so many efficiency gains you can get. And even if you're pruning your client base to make room for better, more profitable engagements, you're still going to run into like, we have more demand than supply, and we'd like to continue to grow the business. And so one of the more critical errors I see accounting firm owners make is they will hire in advance of demand they think they will have. And then they end up really overstaffed. Tom generates demand. He stays focused on demand generation until he can reasonably project how much support he needs. But there's one additional caveat. A lot of people will hire someone, and then they take a while to train them. They take a while to understand how good they are. Weeks, months, they kind of slow down the overall team. They slow down the averages. Everyone needs training, don't get me wrong. But then sometimes those people will abruptly quit. Sometimes they simply never get up to the level of speed that they need to. And so I'm looking at Tom's overall growth trajectory, and he's like, I'm going to hire a bookkeeper. And I'm like, no, you're going to hire 3. And he's like, why would I hire 3? And I was like, well, because if your growth trajectory continues, you're going to need another one in 90 days. So you may as well bring on 3 because we know that one of them isn't going to be as good as the other 2. In addition to that, one of them may even end up leaving. And so I want one of them to be excellent at the very least. I want to hedge your risk and allow you to continue this upward trajectory. And he's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. There was no like, back and forth. It was just like, oh, that makes perfect sense. And sure enough, it plays out like that. He's just like, oh, this one's significantly better. That one quit after 2 weeks. And this one's okay. They're getting better over time. And that means that I don't have to worry about hiring another person in 90 days because they'll be up to speed in 90, because some people start higher up. They're a little bit faster, a little bit more efficient. They're A plus players from day one. And some people start out at C at B and they take 90 to 120 days to ramp up to A. And that's fine. That's fine. That's my point. And some people they sound like A players on the front end. They come in and they're immediately an F. Like we just had someone come in on Monday, sounded amazing. They were out of the door by Monday evening. And the other person we hired, A plus player, crushing it through every single day of this week. And I'm like, thank the Lord I hired two. Because I would have had to go back to zero and start over. So look, I think we can summarize this by saying like the journey to $1 million can be a march. It can be a 30-year march. It can be a 3-year light jog if you want. But when you have things that work, don't reinvent the wheel. You don't need, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yes, we want to look for efficiencies, but at the same time, like, keep your eye on the ball. And what you're focusing on as the entrepreneur is you want your team to be productive. You want to be able to look towards the future and understand your data from today and make smart decisions. The accounting value proposition 101. So like live and breathe in your value proposition, like stay in it. When you have experts on your side, keep them, especially as you're generating more and more returns, and don't spin your wheels. You don't have time to waste, and you don't need to work 80 hours a week for, however long, a decade plus, before something happens for you to realize it, because it's sad. It's sad. But there's hope, right? There's always hope. And so look, that's what I've got for you today. Again, client is 100% responsible for all the results they generate. If they want to assign any credit to us, it's just a blessing to be a part of their life as far as I'm concerned. So thank you so much for your time, energy, and attention. I hope you learned at least one useful thing in this particular Dream Firm Spotlight. My name is Tyler S. Clark. If you'd like the opportunity to start the journey to your dream firm, check out the links floating around down below this video. And remember that only you can create your dream firm, but we are here to help you every single step of the way. Have a fantastic rest of your workday, and I'll talk to y'all very soon.